Commander Vex Prime adjusted his bioscanner for the third time that morning, his mandibles clicking with frustration. 27 cycles of scanning primitive human settlements, and what did he have to show for it? A collection of genetic samples that wouldn't impress a first-year Academy cadet. Another dead end, Commander? Lieutenant Cora's voice carried that particular brand of smugness that made Vex Prime's antennae twitch. She was young, ambitious, and unfortunately, correct most of the time. Silence, Lieutenant. The Oracle's prophecy spoke of a bloodline hidden among the mud dwellers. We will find it. Vex Prime's compound eyes focused on the latest batch of human samples collected from the small Earth settlement designated as Sector 7719. These creatures look identical to us. How difficult can it be? Cora's laugh was a series of chittering sounds that would have been musical if it weren't so condescending. Perhaps the Oracle was referring to a metaphorical bloodline, Commander. You know how those ancient beings enjoyed their riddles. Vex Prime's carapace darkened, a sure sign of irritation among his species. The Oracle does not speak in metaphors when it comes to the throne of eternity. Every major species in the galaxy has been tested. Every genetic marker catalogued. The Heir exists, and they exist here, on this backwater planet. The bioscanner suddenly erupted in a cacophony of alerts. Warning lights painted the command chamber in shades of amber and crimson. Both officers froze. What in the 7 nebulae? Vex Prime's words caught in his throat as the scanner's display filled with data streams he'd never seen before. Doctor? Maya Torres was having what she generously called a normal Tuesday morning, which translated from her usual optimism meant everything was going spectacularly wrong. Mrs. Henderson, I need you to hold still for just one more moment, Maya said, trying to keep the exhaustion from her voice as she drew blood from her elderly patient. 3 double shifts in a row at the community clinic were taking their toll. You're such a sweet girl, dear. Mrs. Henderson patted Maya's hand with her free one, working so hard to help everyone in town. Your grandmother would be so proud. Maya smiled, though something cold twisted in her stomach at the mention of her grandmother. Elena Torres had died 3 months ago, taking with her a lifetime of strange stories about their family's special gift and warnings about people who might come looking for them someday. Paranoid old woman, Maya muttered under her breath as she labeled the blood sample. What was that, dear? Nothing, Mrs. Henderson. Just talking to myself. As Maya processed the morning's blood samples in the clinic's small laboratory, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. It was ridiculous, of course. The clinic was empty, except for her and the night janitor Bob, who was probably asleep in the supply closet again. She picked up her own sample. She'd drawn her own blood for the annual health screening required by the clinic and placed it in the analyzer. Routine stuff. Blood type, cholesterol, the usual markers that would tell her if she needed to cut back on coffee and start exercising more. The analyzer hummed for longer than usual. Maya frowned, tapping the side of the machine. Come on, you piece of junk. Don't break down on me now. The readout, when it finally appeared, made no sense whatsoever. Unknown genetic markers detected. Sample contamination suspected. Please retest. Maya stared at the screen. In 5 years of running blood tests, she'd never seen that particular error message. She ran the test again. Same result. A third time. The machine seemed almost insulted by her persistence. Fine, she grumbled, making a note to have the analyzer serviced. Guess I'll never know if I'm dying of something exotic. Above the clinic, hovering in a cloaked vessel that would have made human scientists weep with envy, Commander Vex Prime was having what could only be described as a complete mental breakdown. Run the scan again, he ordered for the 4th time. Sir, the readings are consistent, Lieutenant Cora reported, though her voice had lost all traces of smugness. The genetic markers are? They're impossible. Nothing is impossible. Improbable, perhaps. Inconvenient, certainly. But impossible? Vex Prime leaned closer to the display, his compound eyes taking in data that shouldn't exist. These readings suggest a genetic line that predates our own civilization by 50,000 cycles. Commander, Cora's voice was barely above a whisper. If these readings are accurate, this human isn't just any descendant. According to the genetic markers, she's the primary heir. Vex Prime finished, the one prophesied to claim the throne of eternity. Both officers stood in stunned silence, contemplating the implications. The throne of eternity wasn't just a symbolic seat of power. It was a living entity that had waited for millions of cycles for the return of its rightful ruler. Every major species in the galaxy had searched for the heir. Wars had been fought. Civilizations had risen and fallen in the quest to find the one being capable of awakening the throne. And apparently, she was a small-town doctor who complained about her coffee machine. "Sir," Cora ventured carefully, "what are our orders?" Vex Prime's mandibles clicked rapidly, the equivalent of nervous laughter among his kind. "Our orders were to locate and retrieve the heir for presentation to the Galactic Council. They said nothing about the heir being a human who probably thinks the most advanced technology in the universe is her medical scanner. Should we make contact? Absolutely not." Vex Prime began pacing, his claws clicking against the metal floor. "Do you have any idea what will happen when the Council learns we've found the heir? Every species in the galaxy will want to either worship her or eliminate her as a threat. So, what do? We observe. We wait. And we try to figure out how to tell a human that she's the most important being in the galaxy without causing her to have what they call a nervous breakdown." Maya was cleaning up the laboratory when she heard the first crash. It came from the main examination room, followed by what sounded like muffled cursing in a language she definitely didn't recognize. "Bob?" she called out. "Bob, are you okay?" Silence. Maya grabbed a flashlight and cautiously made her way toward the examination room. The door was ajar, and through the crack, she could see strange blue lights flickering across the walls. "Okay," she whispered to herself. "Either Bob found some really interesting cleaning supplies, or I'm about to have the weirdest night of my life." She pushed the door open and immediately wished she hadn't. Two figures stood in her examination room, and they definitely weren't Bob. They were tall, insectoid, with compound eyes that reflected her flashlight beam like mirrors. One wore what appeared to be a uniform covered in geometric patterns, while the other carried a device that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. The uniformed one, Commander Vex Prime, though Maya obviously didn't know that, noticed her first. "Greetings, human," he said, in accented but perfectly understandable English. "Please do not be alarmed. We are here on a matter of extreme importance regarding your unique genetic heritage." Maya did what any reasonable person would do in such a situation. She screamed. Then she threw her flashlight at the alien and ran. "Well?" Lieutenant Cora observed, as they watched the human flee down the hallway. "That went better than expected." "How exactly did that go better than expected?" Vex Prime demanded, rubbing his carapace where the flashlight had struck him. "She didn't faint, and she didn't try to call your local authorities. She just ran, which suggests survival instincts." "Survival instincts are good for an heir to the throne?" "Commander, the last heir we found in the Andromeda sector immediately tried to challenge us to single combat using a farming implement. The one before that attempted to sell us insurance. This one, at least, has the sense to run from unknown threats." Vex Prime considered this. Point taken. But now, she's running loose in her settlement, probably preparing to alert her entire species to our presence. Maya, meanwhile, had made it exactly 3 blocks before she realized how insane she must look, running through the empty streets in her lab coat, screaming about aliens. She ducked into an alley between the hardware store and the bakery, trying to catch her breath and process what she'd just seen. "Okay, Maya," she said to herself. Let's think about this rationally. Either you've finally snapped from working too many double shifts, or there really were two giant bug people in your clinic talking about your genetic heritage. She pulled out her phone to call the police, then stopped. What exactly was she going to tell them? "Hello, officer. I'd like to report a break-in by aliens who seem very interested in my DNA?" Her phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. "Dr. Torres, we apologize for startling you. We mean no harm. Your grandmother left instructions that we might need to contact you someday. Please return to the clinic. We will explain everything." Maya stared at the message. Her grandmother's warnings suddenly didn't seem quite so paranoid. "Elena knew about this," she whispered. "She actually knew about this." Another text arrived. "Also, we can cure cancer. We thought that might encourage you to hear us out." Maya looked up at the night sky, where she could now make out the faint outline of something that definitely wasn't an airplane hovering over the town. "I need a drink," she muttered. A very large drink. But despite every instinct screaming at her to keep running, she found herself walking back toward the clinic. Because if there was even a chance, they were telling the truth about curing cancer. Commander Vex Prime and Lieutenant Cora were waiting in the clinic's reception area when Maya cautiously pushed through the front door. They had turned on all the lights and appeared to have made coffee. "We took the liberty of preparing a beverage," Vex Prime said, gesturing to the coffee machine. "Your grandmother's notes indicated you consume large quantities of caffeine when processing stressful information." "My grandmother left notes about my coffee consumption?" Maya asked, accepting the mug with shaking hands. "Among other things, yes. Elena Torres was quite thorough in her documentation. She knew this day would come." Maya sank into one of the waiting room chairs. "Start from the beginning, and please tell me this is some kind of elaborate prank." Lieutenant Cora consulted a device that looked like a cross between a tablet and a kaleidoscope. "Unfortunately, Dr. Torres, this is quite real. Your species calls your grandmother's condition Alzheimer's disease. But what you perceived as memory loss was actually her mind beginning to process genetic memories that had been dormant for generations." "Genetic memories?" "Information passed down through bloodlines," Vex Prime explained. "Your family carries the genetic legacy of the ancients, the first spacefaring civilization in this galaxy. They disappeared approximately 50,000 of your years ago, but not before establishing a failsafe." Maya took a very large gulp of coffee. A failsafe. The Throne of Eternity. A biomechanical entity designed to govern the galaxy when their direct rule ended. It has been waiting for someone with the proper genetic markers to claim it and restore order to the increasingly chaotic galactic community. "And you think I'm this person because?" Cora held up the scanner, which was still beeping enthusiastically. "Your blood sample triggered every genetic marker we've been searching for across 17 different species. You're not just any descendant of the ancients, Dr. Torres. You're their primary heir." Maya laughed. It started as a small chuckle and escalated into full-blown hysteria. "This is insane. I'm a small-town doctor who can barely manage her student loans, and you're telling me I'm supposed to rule the galaxy?" "Not rule, precisely," Vex Prime corrected. "Govern. There's a significant difference." "Oh, well, that makes it so much better." Maya stood up and began pacing. "Look, I appreciate the cosmic joke and all, but I think you've got the wrong person. I can barely keep the plants in my office alive. I am definitely not qualified to govern anything larger than a medical clinic, Dr. Torres," Cora said gently. "The genetic markers don't lie, and according to our readings, the throne is already responding to your presence." "What do you mean, responding?" Vex Prime and Cora exchanged glances. "The Throne of Eternity has been dormant for 50,000 years, but according to our deep space monitoring stations, it activated approximately 3 hours ago, the exact moment your blood sample was processed." Maya felt the color drain from her face. "That can't be a coincidence." "No," Vex Prime agreed. It cannot. Outside the clinic, the first signs of what was to come were already appearing. Strange lights flickered across the night sky as automated systems throughout the galaxy began receiving a signal they had waited millennia to detect. On a dozen different worlds, ancient archives started downloading information that had been locked away since the dawn of galactic civilization. And in the depths of space, something vast and ancient stirred to life, sending out a call that would reach every corner of the galaxy within days. The heir had been found. The waiting was over. Maya looked out the window, at the peaceful streets of her hometown, unaware that her simple blood test had just changed the fate of billions of beings across the stars. "So," she said finally, turning back to the aliens who had upended her entire worldview in the span of an hour. "What happens now?" Commander Vex Prime's compound eyes reflected the clinic's fluorescent lights as he considered how to answer. How do you tell someone that their quiet life is about to become the center of the largest political upheaval in galactic history? "Now," he said carefully, "things get complicated." Maya had consumed 4 cups of coffee and was working on her 5th when the real chaos began. It started with a sound like thunder, if thunder could be tuned to a frequency that made your teeth ache. "What was that?" she asked, looking up from the stack of ancient documents that Vex Prime had produced from somewhere in his ship. The papers were covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly, but somehow she could read them perfectly. "That," Lieutenant Cora said, checking her scanner with obvious concern, "would be the first wave of arrivals." "Arrivals?" Commander Vex Prime moved to the window, his compound eyes reflecting the strange lights now dancing across the sky. "Word travels fast in the galactic community, Dr. Torres. News that the heir has been found will reach every major civilization within hours. Some will come to pay homage. Others will come to kill me," Maya finished. "Or capture you for their own purposes, yes." Maya set down her coffee cup with deliberate care. "You know what? I've changed my mind. This whole heir to the galactic throne thing? Not interested. Find someone else." Cora made that chittering sound again, but this time it wasn't condescending. It was genuinely amused. "I'm afraid it doesn't work that way, Dr. Torres. Genetic destiny is not a job you can quit. Watch me." Maya stood up and headed for the door. "I'm going to pack a bag and drive to my cousin's place in Montana. You can tell the galaxy that the heir went fishing." She made it exactly 3 steps before the clinic's front windows exploded inward. Through the shower of glass came something that looked like a cross between a medieval knight and a mechanical spider. Its armor gleamed silver, and energy weapons hummed along its limbs. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Surrender the pretender," it demanded. "The Mechanoid Collective does not recognize human authority over ancient technology." "Well, that was fast," Vex Prime muttered, drawing what Maya really hoped was a weapon and not a medical device. "Dr. Torres," Cora called out, "please step behind the reception desk and try not to die. This may get unpleasant." Maya dove behind the desk, just as the mechanical spider knight opened fire. Energy bolts scorched the air where she'd been standing, leaving smoking holes in the wall. "You know," she shouted over the sound of alien weapons fire, "when I went to medical school, nobody mentioned that my degree might come with intergalactic combat training." Vex Prime returned fire with his own weapon, which shot bolts of crackling blue energy. Consider it continuing education. The battle lasted exactly 47 seconds. Maya knew this because she was counting, figuring that if she was going to die in an alien firefight, she at least wanted to know how long it took. The mechanical spider knight was skilled, fast, and heavily armed. Unfortunately for it, Commander Vex Prime and Lieutenant Cora were members of the Galactic Enforcement Corps, which meant they were very good at their jobs. When the smoke cleared, the mechanical intruder was in several pieces, sparking and twitching on the clinic floor. "Is it dead?" Maya asked, peering over the reception desk. "Mechanoids don't technically die," Cora explained, poking the remains with her weapon. They just become very expensive scrap metal. Great! So, I'm being hunted by robots who can't die. This day just keeps getting better. Actually, Vex Prime said, checking his communicator, it's about to get significantly worse. My ship's sensors are detecting 17 more vessels entering your planet's atmosphere. And those are just the ones not using stealth technology. Maya sat down heavily on the floor, still behind the reception desk. 17 more groups like that one? Worse. The Mechanoid Collective are relatively reasonable. Some of the others. Vex Prime paused. Let's just say they have more creative approaches to persuasion. As if summoned by his words, the clinic's back door simply vanished. Not exploded, not broken down, vanished, leaving behind a perfectly smooth hole in the wall. Through the opening floated a being that looked like it was made of liquid starlight. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Greetings, Ancient One," it said to Maya. "I am Ambassador Lux of the Energy Collective. We have come to escort you to your rightful place." "That's nice," Maya said, "but I'm having a really bad day, and I'm not going anywhere with anyone who dissolves my doors." "I did not dissolve your door," Ambassador Lux corrected politely. "I relocated it to a parallel dimension. It will be returned when our business is concluded." "Oh, well, that makes it completely fine then." Before Ambassador Lux could respond, the roof caved in. Through the hole dropped a squad of what could only be described as armored bears with attitude problems. "Nobody move!" the lead bear warrior roared. "By order of the Ursine Empire, this human is under our protection." "Your protection?" Ambassador Lux's glow intensified. "The Energy Collective has prior claim." "Prior claim?" Vex Prime stepped forward, his weapon still drawn. "The Galactic Enforcement Corps has jurisdiction here." Maya looked up at the hole in her ceiling, where more ships were becoming visible. "How many different alien species are there, exactly? In the galaxy?" Cora consulted her scanner. "Approximately 4,732 spacefaring civilizations, give or take a few hundred. And how many of them are interested in me?" "All of them." Maya put her head in her hands. "I need another drink." The standoff in the clinic might have lasted hours, if not for what happened next. The lights went out. All of them. Not just in the clinic, but throughout the entire town. Then the backup generators failed. Then the car engines stopped running. Then everyone's watches stopped ticking. In the absolute darkness, a new voice spoke. It was ancient, vast, and seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Enough." Every alien in the clinic immediately prostrated themselves. Even the armored bears got down on their bellies. "The heir will come to us," the voice continued, "when the heir chooses to come to us. Until then, you will wait. You will not interfere. You will not threaten. You will not dissolve any more architectural features." The last part seemed directed specifically at Ambassador Lux. "Who is that?" Maya whispered. "The Throne of Eternity," Vex Prime answered, without lifting his face from the floor. "It appears to have decided to participate directly in the conversation." "The big cosmic chair is talking to me?" "It is not a chair," the voice corrected, and Maya could swear she heard amusement in it. "And you are correct to be cautious, young Heir. Your species has a saying about power and corruption that shows remarkable wisdom." The lights came back on. The aliens remained prostrate. "So," Maya said, looking around at the scene in her destroyed clinic, "you're the thing I'm supposed to govern? Control? Sit on? Work with," the throne corrected. "The ancients designed us as partners, not as a tool for dominion. Galactic governance requires wisdom, compassion, and the ability to make difficult decisions. Your medical training has prepared you better than you realize." Maya considered this. "What if I say no? Then the galaxy will continue as it has fractured, chaotic, with each species pursuing its own interests without regard for the greater good. Wars will continue, suffering will increase, and eventually, something catastrophic will happen that could have been prevented. No pressure or anything. Indeed, no pressure. Maya walked over to the window and looked out at her small town. Mrs. Henderson was probably wondering why her streetlights had gone out. Bob the janitor was probably still asleep in the supply closet, blissfully unaware that his workplace had become ground zero for an intergalactic political crisis. Can I have some time to think about it? Of course, but be aware that time is not unlimited. The longer you delay, the more enthusiastic your various suitors will become. As if to prove the point, something large and scaly landed on the clinic's parking lot with enough force to crack the asphalt. Through the broken windows, Maya could see more ships descending. How long do I have? Hours, perhaps. Not days. Maya turned to Commander Vex Prime, who had finally gotten up from the floor. If I agree to this, and I'm not saying I will, what exactly would happen? You would be transported to the throne's location in the galactic core. There, you would undergo a bonding process that would grant you access to ancient technology and knowledge. You would become, effectively, the final arbiter in all major galactic disputes. Like a cosmic judge? More like a cosmic parent, Lieutenant Cora added. Someone to keep all the galactic civilizations from destroying each other while they mature. Maya laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want me to babysit 4,000 alien civilizations? Essentially, yes. With cosmic superpowers? The ancients were very thorough in their preparations. Maya looked around at the assembled aliens, all of whom were watching, her with varying degrees of hope, fear, and barely controlled ambition. She thought about her grandmother's stories, about the strange dreams she'd been having lately, about the way she'd always felt like she was waiting for something without knowing what. If I do this, she said, finally, I have conditions. Name them, the throne responded. First, no more dissolving buildings or dropping through roofs without permission. If you want to talk to me, use the front door like civilized beings. The various aliens looked at each other uncertainly. Second, I finish my medical degree. I don't care if I'm running the galaxy. I started that program, and I'm going to complete it. Acceptable. Third, I want a vacation every year. 2 weeks. Minimum. Somewhere quiet where nobody wants to worship me or challenge me to combat. Reasonable. And finally, Maya took a deep breath. I want Bob the janitor to come with me as my advisor. Bob? Vex Prime asked, clearly confused. Bob has been working at this clinic for 30 years. He's seen every kind of crisis, every kind of emergency, every kind of impossible situation you can imagine. And you know what he does? He shows up, does his job, and keeps everything running smoothly. If I'm going to govern a galaxy, I want someone like that watching my back. There was a long silence. Then the throne spoke again, and this time the amusement was unmistakable. The ancients would have approved. Very well, heir of the oldest throne. Your terms are accepted. Just like that? Just like that? Will you accept the responsibility? Maya looked out at the chaos in the parking lot, where representatives of dozens of alien civilizations were setting up what appeared to be a combination military camp and interstellar diplomatic conference. She thought about her quiet life, her student loans, her plans for the weekend. Then she thought about her grandmother's stories and the strange certainty that had been growing in her chest since the moment she'd seen those first test results. Yeah, she said, I'll do it, but I'm keeping the coffee machine. Of course. 6 hours later, Maya stood on the bridge of the most advanced starship in the galaxy, watching Earth shrink to a blue dot behind them. Bob the janitor stood beside her, completely unflappable, despite having been awakened to learn that his part-time employer was apparently the most important person in the galaxy. So, he said, sipping from a mug that defied several laws of physics, Do we get dental with this job? Maya grinned. Maybe this wouldn't be so bad after all. Commander Vex Prime approached with what might have been the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. The throne awaits, Your Majesty. Just Maya, she corrected. And Vex? Thanks for not shooting first and asking questions later. It was a close call, he admitted. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying the new Empress of the Galaxy toward her destiny, Maya couldn't help but laugh. Somewhere in the cosmos, her grandmother was probably having the last laugh of all. After all, Elena Torres had always said the universe had a sense of humor. She just never mentioned it was quite this twisted.